we have quite an agenda here. Tip, I'm going to let you speak to talk about the meeting that you've got planned here right away before we do anything else. So.
Thank you, Bob. My name is Tip Wanhoff. I organize some of these meetings along with Bob. And after a 3-year hiatus, we will be returning to some in-person programming, which is a big step for us. Excuse me. Our resident host, Bill Woodward, has graciously offered the Ames Library space at Seattle Pacific University again. So mark your calendars for Saturday, May 6th. We will be returning to an in-person session that afternoon from roughly noon until 5. We will get out of there a little bit before 5 because I understand the library now closes at 5. So we will need to be up and out of there before they close at 5 o'clock. I understand the Nickerson Street pub has closed. So we will have to find a new place to congregate afterwards. So if anybody wants to go scout out the area for potential landing spots, we would certainly probably welcome that feedback in the coming weeks. So May 6th, the Mariners are at home that night. Yes, May 6th, noon to 5. If you are interested in making a presentation, please contact me via email. I'm looking to fill 4 to 5 presentation slots. Those slots for those of you who may not have attended an in-person meeting before, we usually have 4 to 5 presenters who are each allotted 45 minutes or so, inclusive of question and answer, to present their research or to talk about, whatever the presentation they've crafted. So talk to me if you are interested in sharing your research with our group. Even as we transition back to in-person programming, we do want to remind everybody that we will continue virtual programming. And I'm currently working to schedule something in the month of March, hopefully, for one of these virtual programs. I've currently reached out to SABR headquarters about getting a time reserved, and I'm awaiting confirmation on that. So as soon as I have that confirmation, I will share it with you all. But May 6th is the first day to save, and I'll let you know about future virtual programs as well. Any questions for right now? Okay, thanks, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Tip. Okay, so I've shared with you, I sent along the agenda to a lot of people here. So I'm going to follow that agenda pretty much. I have just a few hours ago sent everyone the Survey Monkey that talks about the name change of the chapter. So you should be able to find that goes out. It'll say SABR chapters in your email there. Okay. You can take that Survey Monkey. So that's the first really item on the agenda there, the name change, possible name change from Northwest SABR to SABR Cascades. And I will open up the floor to anyone who wants to speak to
that. Let me go first.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. This is Anthony Salazar from Ballard, Seattle, Washington. So I was one of the ones, maybe the only one, I guess, to broach the topic about a name change, and what precipitated that, and Bob kind of alluded to that in the email. This was an opportunity that I thought we might want to explore. It had happened that at some point in time, northwestsabr.org was locked. No one could remember who actually set that website up, and therefore we couldn't edit any of the content or what have you. And it wasn't until the URL actually expired a couple of weeks ago, so we were able to, not so much get access, but we can actually purchase that. But it also necessitated the question, well, what if we looked at rebranding? And so rebranding our SABR chapter as SABR Cascades or Cascade SABR. And I bring that up because it was, it seems at a couple of national meetings or so, you know, you run into people and they'll ask, you know, where's Northwest SABR? And some, you know, I recall someone saying, is that in Minnesota or Wisconsin or someplace like that? So, you know, I had to explain, no, we're talking about the Pacific Northwest. And so I had this idea about this Cascade Mountain Range. You know, as you know, there's a Rocky Mountain range or a Rocky Mountain chapter. So I thought, okay, you know, it'd be kind of fun to have a SABR Cascades that pays homage to the Cascade Range that incorporates a lot of our membership. Bearing in mind that we do have members in Idaho and Montana. So that's where that came from. So I'm looking at this, and what I'd like to address to you folks is just thinking of this as an opportunity just to rebrand. And I think to me, it's kind of a fun name. And again, it just pays homage to that mountain range that a lot of us look at every day. So there you go. You know, welcome any feedback.
Bill Woodward, one of the things that doing that does, Anthony, and I don't really have a feeling one way or the other strongly, is it recognizes we have BC members, which that's Southwest Canada, not Northwest. But I want, before we go too much farther, I want to hear from Mark Armour about what Bill North and whoever West was that you once proposed we change our name to, would think of this.
So I can't take credit for that joke. That was actually John Pasteur, who wanted to name us Northwest after Bill North and somebody West. I don't know. So yes, that was the old joke that was around the chapter years ago, and I can't take credit for it. It was at the time very funny. You have to trust me on that. But you know, I can't speak for whether that's still. I had a couple of comments, which is, I think it's funny. I mean, I generally go along with whatever Anthony says, but on matters like this. But I think it's. He said something that was very funny, which is that no one knows where Northwest SABR is. Whereas we're supposed to know where the Eldon Ocker chapter is. I was actually on a call. I was invited to participate in this call with the Larry Doby chapter, and so I went into the meeting and I talked, and I even made some little like lighthearted comment about New Jersey, which is where I assumed the Larry Doby chapter was, because I knew he was from Camden, but it turns out he's from Camden, South Carolina. I think he grew up in New Jersey, and I think he died in New Jersey, and that's where I associated. And it wasn't until after I got off the call,
Patterson, New Jersey,
discovered that he actually the chapter I spoke to was in South Carolina, and that's why the joke that I made fell flat. Maybe that's not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons it fell flat, was that I had no idea where the Larry Doby chapter was. So I'm not sure about the not knowing where it is issue. Anthony's right, and I think we're the only chapter that essentially, I always assumed that meant it didn't have a name, but I do want to say, if you don't mind, I did get a note this week from Jim Price. Does anybody here know Jim Price? Know who he is?
I've also gotten communicated with him.
Okay.
And he's not. So, go ahead.
So just to summarize, Jim Price lives in Spokane. He's lived in Spokane. I think I've only met him once or twice, but he's been in the chapter forever. And in fact, he founded the chapter. I believe he founded the chapter when he lived in Seattle. And this was like 40 years ago. And he basically wrote in, and he is a really nice gentleman, but he's been in Spokane the whole time that I've been here, which means, since at least the 90s. And he wrote basically asking that we not change the name, because he believes that it is that the Cascades do not reflect all of the geography of the chapter, because he deliberately wanted to include Boise and Spokane and everything else. So that's sort of a problem that we essentially have, is that the chapter is so big that there's no name that works.
Yeah, there is actually. Sorry, it's Alec.
Pardon?
There is. It's called Cascadia. I dropped it in the chat, and it includes Idaho.
Got it. Okay. So anyway, that I just wanted to pass along Jim's idea. So he and Doug Simpson founded the chapter, and Doug and he are both still SABR members, still part of the chapter. And neither of them, Jim has not been to a Northwest SABR meeting in the whole time I've lived here, I don't believe. But
Mark, maybe do you mind if I add a couple of things to that? So
of course not.
I'm with you. I don't honestly have personal strong feeling one way or the other, but I will say I grew up in Boise. I would probably more associate Boise with Rocky Mountain than Cascadia. I don't think that people living there would really have that name association. And I think it really kind of depends on what our goals are. So if our goal is to have kind of more recognition through BC, I think it makes sense to make the name change. But if our goal is for people within SABR more broadly to be aware of us, I don't really think that accomplishes that, because I do think like probably most people kind of know where the Rocky Mountains are, but I don't know that most people broadly would really know where Cascadia or the Cascade Range is. So I think it just kind of depends on like what our goal is for like chapter outreach. Is it within SABR or is it within the region?
Can I chime in here? So, I've always resisted the idea of having our chapter named after an individual, for the same reason that there was no individual that really encapsulated everything. And when I can talk to people on the phone and say, "Hi, this is Bob Russin from Northwest SABR," they know what's going on with it there. Now there's 26 people here at this meeting. There's about 250 members that live in our geographical area that are a part of SABR. And I've been a little more cognizant of the widespread of that during the pandemic, when everyone was virtual and stuff like that. And we did have people that I didn't know that never came to meetings that were logging into our virtual meetings and stuff like that. And some of those people, not only Jim Price, but some of those people are pretty adamantly opposed to changing the name from Northwest SABR because they don't identify with the Cascade Range. They live in Eastern Washington or Eastern Oregon or BC or other places, and they don't identify with it. In the same way, you could live in Southern Oregon or something like that, you really wouldn't have too much identification with it. So, and a couple of those people are upset about it, talking about leaving the chapter and wanting to go someplace else and feeling like they're getting pushed out. Okay, and I've also been talking with Jim Price, and I did promise that I would read. I told him, if you can't come to this, I'll read your message. So here goes, I'll read his message here. A group of us gave I'll cut this short. A group of us gave quite a bit of thought to choosing the name, motivated even those 40 plus years ago by the fact that regardless of where one lived in Washington, Oregon, and North Idaho, and British Columbia, as I recall those days, SABR members may be anywhere in the region and share present and historical interest in professional baseball, including, of course, the Mariners, principally in Seattle, Portland, Eugene, Salem, Yakima, Spokane, and Boise. Changing the name to Cascades would exclude a very high percentage of Northwest geography and those of us scattered east of the mountains. As founding president, I generated and executed the concept of annual meetings in Portland as well as Seattle, Our first Oregon meeting had Bobby Doerr and Larry Jansen as guests at Portland State in the early 1980s. Because I was a staff member of the Mariners affiliated Spokane Indians, and relying on my periodic career experience, I developed Seattle meetings that matched Gaylord Perry with Ray Rochborn talking back to back about no-hitters. Further, without belaboring the point, I joined Mark Armour, an early Oregon member, and Dave Ashkenazi in producing the very successful publication when the chapter hosted the national convention. Please do not make this change. Best regards, Jim Price. Okay. So I was pretty neutral, pretty kind of thoughtful about this, but I've not necessarily because of that letter, but because of the number of people that said that they were feeling excluded and that it didn't really include them. I voted to retain the Northwest SABR name for the chapter.
Well,
go ahead, Alex.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a trade-off between tradition, as most institutions have, and relevance. And I guess, I would say that I think the poll was a good idea, but it was kind of narrowly framed, right? And to say, choice A, choice B, or something else. I mean, the question really is, is it confusing to people, who aren't from here? Do people from here feel excluded? Would they feel excluded if it changed? I personally think the number of SABR people are pretty intense, and I feel like the name is not. I mean, I involved in other chapters, and this is an important one. But I guess Pacific Northwest I still think is more inclusive. But any name you could put on things, people are going to say, no one's going to like it, right, necessarily, right? There are people in Eastern Washington that want to be part of Idaho. There's people in Idaho that want to secede, not SABR members necessarily, but you can't. The degree to which you rely on historical, precedent for naming the place, I think it's a little bit. I think I would not overweight that. I'm a newer member and I'm probably biased, but I guess I think the tradition is important, but I would not. I think it's about the next 40 years of this chapter, not the last, personally.
Right. Thank you, Alec. I think that's very insightful. So getting back to someone asked, and Emily and someone else asked in the chat about the goals. And, I'm looking at this as well as sort of inward as well as outward. We used to do these, the fan fests, and we'd have prospective members come and talk about the chapter. I think I really like the name the Cascadia because it does incorporate a lot of the geographical areas that we're talking about. So, I feel that this would fit the bill, SABR Cascadia, for perhaps someone like Jim Price, who's feeling excluded being in Spokane, or folks in Boise, or folks in Missoula or Vancouver and what have you. It's about generating that interest, again, both inward and outward, for those prospective members within Cascadia and those other members outside of Cascadia that are just kind of wondering what's going on up there in that neck of the woods. So, the goals really are just about, building awareness and, creating these pride points for what we do. And again, it is an opportunity to rebrand. If we, create a new website, that's an opportunity to, keep telling our story, from different parts of Cascadia. If we've got writers, who are members from different parts, hopefully they can bring up some of their pride points within their areas. So we start building that awareness. And as Alec pointed out, we're not just talking about today, we're talking about 40 years from now.
Is there an option to split the difference, go like Cascadia / Inland Empire, or Cascadia / something, so that both sides of the can, compromise, no one's happy, but everyone's okay?
Well, you could say that they're like subgroups, and you could identify yourself, to your point, as like.
I'm still recovering from the people
Washington.
that want to quit the chapter because of the name change.
Yeah. But you could say that Cascadia members are Cascadia/Oregon's, Cascadia/Washington, Cascadia/Idaho, or whatever. Like you could just, people could like just have little identifiers. That's kind of a
right, subsects.
Yeah.
When you do go on the SABR site, it identifies our chapter as being in Washington, and that's where the largest number of members are.
Right.
Are there other regions that have had this problem, or they just name themselves after players that we think are from another state?
Well, I don't have, excluding the chapters like in Nepal or Australia or places like that, I think we have probably the largest geographical footprint. I mean, really, because we have members in Alaska.
Yeah.
I think we have the largest geographical footprint of any SABR chapter.
And I can imagine the Rocky Mountain chapter covers obviously those Rocky Mountain states, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico, and Arizona, and so forth.
Well, Arizona is pretty much covered by there's a couple chapters in Arizona.
Right. Montana.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have 4 Montana members.
Yeah, but regardless, we have a huge geographical footprint.
Yeah.
If I could, I'd like to just take a minute to introduce myself real quick. It's been probably about 3 years since I was maybe part of one of the last in-person SABR meetings. I'm a small business marketing and nonprofit marketing professional and consultant. I just spent the last year in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, doing a complete branding job for the Buck Leonard Association. I would simply offer this, that you can accomplish a rebrand without a name change. And if the goal is to have the name instantly tell people where you're from, Pacific Northwest is the best name, in my opinion. I'll leave it at that.
I do want to point out that Mike has his hand up, Mike Slocum.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a relatively new member, but I spent several years, I've spent a lot more time west of the Cascade Mountains than I have east, but I did live for several years over in Spokane. And my territory, I was a Navy recruiter at the time. My territory included, probably half of the state of Idaho. And if you were to use something like the Cascade Mountains, that might cause some resentment for those folks over in the inland portion of the Northwest. And if you want to get more members from places like Montana, Eastern Washington, Idaho, or Alaska, as far as that goes. Bob already mentioned Alaska, and that, there is some, they want to be recognized as part of the area, just like those of us in Western Washington.
And really, at this point, the only way that we're going to be involved in interacting with people in Alaska or something like that is virtual.
Right.
They want to organize something. They say, well, I live in Alaska. Well, they live in Juneau or Anchorage. That's hundreds of miles away anyway. So if they want to organize something, we'll try to publicize it. But really, we're talking about virtually meeting with a lot of those people.
Well, sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And I'm up in Bellingham, so I can't go down to Seattle very often, but I could certainly go down there more often than somebody in Missoula or Billings or someplace like that. But and if you want to combine everything and relate everything to those of us that live in this part of the country, and somebody brought up names of former ball players. I mean, I would vote to call us the, I don't know, Ednez, chapter or something like that. I think he's a hero of everybody that's a baseball fan around here.
Well, that's why I deliberately left the choices on the Survey Monkey to 2 choices there. It's not.
Hey, Bob, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
I just got a text from Mark saying he lost his connection and he's currently in the waiting room. If you'd please let him in.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
I responded to somebody in the Facebook group that said, "Is the meeting on?" They said they couldn't get in, and
Well,
I was
I haven't
like,
been paying attention.
"Did you register?"
I'm doing it
I
right
don't think
now.
I don't think
letting
it's
people
your
in
fault,
right
Bob.
now.
I
Yeah,
just don't think
okay.
they registered, or they would have got the Zoom link.
Yeah, well, if they didn't do that, they're out of luck.
I asked if they were registered. It's a lady. Did I miss the meeting? No luck joining. Oh.
Who was it? Do you know?
Her name is Melissa Booker. It says. I'm not going to look
Oh,
her up
Missy
here.
Booker. Well, she gets all. She's still an active member. She gets all her stuff. She gets everything from me. She gets all the links and stuff like that. So,
well, it happens, right?
I may not be able to help her.
If they're from Seattle, you let them in. If they're not from Seattle,
well, she's in Kentucky now, but she's a member of this chapter, so they're welcome to come. Okay.
Could I say?
So there's about 50 people that live outside of even the greater Pacific Northwest that are members of this chapter. Some of them are SABR with the national and stuff like that. Like Jacob Pomeranke is part of joins every group and stuff like that. But other people have different reasons. I'm a member of the Wisconsin chapter, so you can join more than one chapter.
I live here in Spokane, but work has me in the Midwest for a good portion of the year. So I'm also a Chicago and Central Illinois chapter.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a chapter. I went to one of the meetings a couple of weeks ago, and it's a they say it's a Canadian chapter, but it's Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, or Toronto, Ottawa.
Yeah.
So why would I join that based on geographic location?
Well,
I'm going to fly to and from Toronto.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you can join any chapter even as your primary chapter. You're not forced to. You live in Seattle. You're not forced to join Pacific Northwest chapter. And sometimes I meet people that haven't done that, and I welcome them and say, you can always join. You're welcome to come to our meetings and participate with us, even if you choose to have another chapter as your primary chapter. So anyway, should we? I'd like to kind of wrap this up, this part of the conversation up here. I guess we'll have some results, what people think about the name change and things like that. If we have some kind of an inconclusive thing, then I'm going to suggest that we just keep the conversation going and continue to explore this topic and things like that. I deliberately left off options besides the two choices in the Survey Monkey, just because it just seems to go crazy. But we can have this conversation there, either online or have a Zoom meeting to continue to talk about that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why is our Facebook page Pacific Northwest SABR if we're really only the Northwest SABR?
Well, I don't know.
And because the Pacific Northwest SABR sounds like a great name to me, but
yeah,
that's just me.
I don't know. Well, we could. That's another option, that
I feel like I did that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, what I would suggest, I agree, keep it open, but I think that for May, I think, in my opinion, there actually are 3 to 4 good names, and I would propose ranked choice voting. And what happens is the last vote, people who pick the 4th thing have to re-vote and pick there's 3 left, and because I think that your results are going to be 1/3 want the old name, 1/3 want the other name, and 1/3 want a different name. So I don't think you're going to get consensus unless you have multiple rounds of voting, in my opinion.
Well, those are all good ideas, depending on who wants what and what the names are and stuff like that. And we're a small minority of the people, because that survey went out to every member that's listed on the SABR list there. So went out to more than 300 people there. So we'll see what they say. Okay. Yeah, but
how many people have responded so far?
Well, I just did it. I just put it up 2 hours ago. I was saving it for this conversation because I wanted people to have a chance to listen to this before they voted and stuff like that. So I assume not too many, but you all should have it. You all should have it in your inbox. Yeah.
Now, the impetus of this was because of the domain name expiring on the.
Well, no, it is all tied together though. And I'll let Anthony speak to that too. But we really wouldn't, if we purchase a domain name, it would be nice to have it settled on what the name actually should be.
So in the end, would it all come down to whether the domain name is available to begin with?
So that'd just be part of it. Anthony, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. So yes, I think the finding the domain name was part of that. And it was something that had been rattling around in my head for a couple of years, or no, quite a number of years. We keep coming back to this conversation. It seems like every 5 years. And so it was just the URL, the domain name, that really at least provided the catalyst for me to kind of get this little ball rolling here. So that's that story.
Yeah, when you browse to the domain name in the email that was sent, it doesn't load.
Well, we really, the chapter needs a couple of help from computer literate people in setting this up, and that's not me.
So it seems like, once we get a name settled, then we've got to get the website going again.
Yeah. Well,
let me interrupt here. Neil, are you trying to talk with us? It doesn't show you're muted, and I'm seeing you kind of talking. I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear us, Neil? Signify something. Okay. We can't hear you.
Now.
No.
There you go.
There's something wrong with my settings.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, if we're going to try to be as inclusive of this portion of the continent as we can, why don't we just say upper left? I mean, that goes from Idaho to Alaska, right?
Yeah. Well,
and includes Canada.
That's an
Not
idea.
California.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I don't think Northern California considers itself part of the Northwest.
No, we do have a couple. We do have some members from Northern California, but they're mostly people that also belong to other chapters too.
No, I said not California. I thought that was helpful, right? Because I told
Yeah.
people I was moving to the West Coast, and they said, "Which part of California you're going to?" And I said, "There's more to it than that."
Well, hence upper.
Well, that's the issue with other chapters and something like that. If you live in Philadelphia, you belong to the Philadelphia chapter, and everybody can no one has to go too far to get to the meetings and stuff across town. Although Chicago chapter, the White Sox fans on the south side will not go to the north side for a meeting, and vice versa. Okay, so any further questions or comments? So I think we need to continue this dialogue there one way or another. Maybe we can start to email each other or do something like that. I'd really be interested in people who wanted to volunteer to dig into helping to get I'll tell you what what I thought there as part of this whole is, yeah, we need to do a reset on that chapter's website there, and it would be helpful if we had an idea of what to name it. The Facebook page that we have works. Any member is welcome to log on and post there. But I'd like to make the website a little more polished and enlist an editor or a monitor to curate the postings there, and not to just have it be a grab bag of stuff that goes in there. Okay, and then if we could start a blog, have a blog going on that website there, and get people to start doing that and looking forward to that. We could all help writing that blog, but it would be nice to have someone who wanted a writer who wanted to take that on. Okay. And so I'll open that conversation up if anybody else wants to chime in. Any quick questions or comments on that?
I was just answering some stuff in the chat about blog or website, which is, can be separate or one thing. But a question about the Facebook page. You said anybody can log in. Is that the Facebook page or the Facebook group? Because I joined the Facebook group.
Yeah.
But is there an admin for the Facebook page? Because if you're a Facebook page admin, depending on the size of the Facebook page, people have to add you to it. So.
Well, I think.
Me and Mark Brunke are admins. I'm not sure who else. Maybe I'm not sure who else.
Okay, yeah, because I don't think I could post to a Facebook page if I'm not an admin on it, or I got to have a role on the Facebook page to post to it, right? Like the Pacific Northwest SABR chapter is a group. That's different than a Facebook page. That's what I was trying to clarify.
Right, and I want to. Honestly, at the moment, I forget if we're a group or a page.
A group, and you could post stuff. Like I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
You could post stuff. I mean.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest SABR is a group.
Yeah, and anybody can post. I mean.
Yeah, that's right.
Post away.
In fact, Melissa, she said that I missed a meeting.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, because I was just looking at it just to see if she needed help. See, like even the Facebook page says Pacific Northwest SABR, like it's.
Well, yeah, we kind of let those. We haven't really differentiated between those two.
Yeah.
Mark and Anthony are the administrators.
Post away.
I just joined it when I joined the chapter. I post stuff in there.
Well, if we have 3 Facebook pages with different names, we're going to get more members.
Yeah.
Nice.
Adam, are you hearing this? Adam Elries, who I've spoken to about writing a blog, has been, from what I can see, trying to connect for the length of this meeting without success.
And there are 2 of them.
Yeah, yeah. It says
one is muted, the other one is trying to connect.
Yeah.
No, I'm here. I can hear you and listening.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
No, look at we talked about this, Bob, when we were visiting about just trying to get more people involved. And since we do have a big area, to me, having a blog and a website where people can talk about what interests they have and what they're working on, I think it's beneficial to everybody. And plus it gives people an opportunity to share no matter what it is. I mean, that's what SABR's about, is research and sharing stories and having a place to go where somebody could maybe do that would be great. And I think that, you know, when you look at some of the other SABR websites out there with the blogs and newsletters and things, I think it draws a lot more people in. So I think it'd be beneficial to our group to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the impetuses that I have to start this up and have go on this whole conversation again.
I'm going to stop short of volunteering my time on this project because I literally just spent the last 2 years volunteering my time to the Buck Leonard Association and Josh Gibson Foundations and the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. All of that work involved creating new websites and new branding packages, complete brand ID packages, and content marketing. I'm going to go back to what Miss Emily said earlier, that she asked the right question. What's the goal? Nothing should happen until the goals are really clearly understood. And what I've heard so far tonight were that you have goals of being recognizable kind of immediately upon seeing the name, but also to create a sense of pride, and I'll add a third, of inclusion. Anthony, if those of us who grew up in the shadows, we can't help but love and have that connection of Cascadia and Cascades. For those of us who are from here and get it, it emotes something that it doesn't necessarily, land like with people who don't have a clue. Like you traveled all across the country and I learned a lot about where different mountain ranges were. And so I think that if Northwest is confusing for people, I think Cascade is going to be equally confusing. And again, having, this was a really unique experience, spending a year in rural North Carolina and really coming to terms with how little people understand about Seattle and the Pacific Northwest. But Pacific Northwest, I think, is more universally understood. And frankly, I think it also has, there's a sense of pride in being from here, being from the Pacific Northwest. So, but really, my opinions aside, it really kind of comes down to what are the goals and establishing what those goals are. Once that's understood, then the goals of the chapter and its kind of unique value proposition to people who are from here can get very clearly communicated in a brand new website. And I'm going through the process of building a brand new website for my business right now, and I'm doing it on Squarespace. There are other platforms out there like Shopify, ones that you can build on top of an e-commerce platform that allows you to create paid events and things like that in the future if you so wish. And every single one of them has a blog plugin. And so, frankly, these websites are really, really easy to build. But ultimately, all of the work that you do at the top of building a brand is the most important, and it comes with the critical question of what's the goal of our brand. I'll also add that I have a pending project with the Josh Gibson Foundation and Buck Leonard Associations that could take up the majority of my time again this year. If that happens, I won't be available to volunteer my time for a project like this. But if it does happen, I should say, I won't be available to volunteer much more time this year. But if it doesn't happen, I definitely would like to get more involved and can volunteer some time to this effort. I can certainly help walk anybody through this. I for the last 3 years, I've worked with Business Impact Northwest here in Seattle, or over there in Seattle. I'm in Bremerton right now. Business Impact Northwest is like a small business incubator So I've worked with hundreds of small businesses in the state of Washington for the last 3 years, helping them answer questions and walk them through stuff just like this. So it's funny because this is making me have like strong recall to the very first time I walked into my potential Little League meeting, and they were talking about drumming up sponsors. And I was sitting there just trying to mind my own business and just kind of catch the lay of the land. And I'm like, well, gosh, you guys are talking about something that's right up my alley. And I wound up, becoming their marketing guy and sponsorship guy. And so I'm born and raised here. And I've spent the last 3 years really diving into the story of the Negro Leagues and helping bring that to light, something I'm really passionate about. Mark, I feel like I saw you in Birmingham, Mark Armour. Is that right? Were you in Birmingham this year? No. Anyway, that's my longer introduction. But also just this is something that I can definitely, am happy to help as I can through this whole process.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that, Tad, Negro Leagues is my area. I work for the Buffalo Soldier Museum. I don't know if you've seen our calendars. I've done 3 and we're doing another one this year. We're working with Phil Dixon from
cool.
Kansas City, Phil probably. And so I joined this group because of my interest in military baseball and Navy, Army, all that. Like everybody else, I would just watch 61 and just reread all the Roger Maris newspaper stories and all that. I love baseball. And I think the name we have now is less confusing than changing it. So I would just say that I've only been a couple of years. I've been the president. I'm in the Puget Sound Civil War Roundtable. Bill is a member. So is Rick. We've gone through a lot of problems with changes, and we've lost our venue. We had COVID, and we lost a lot of members, and now we're rebuilding. I think the thing that's important is that people attend these things because they have an interest, and the name isn't so much as it is the concepts and ideas, that people tie to this. We could argue whether Bullet Rogan was better than, Oscar Charlton or whatever. I think Rogan's the best player of all time, even better than the Bay. But the point of this is, as a member, I think changing the name isn't really necessary because it's been around this way for 40 years. And rebranding, it's like rebranding, the Negro League. You can't rebrand it. It's a historic thing. History is interpretation, not reinvention. You can't reinvent the past. People try it. So leaving us as a historical organization and maybe changing the way we market it, but I'm not in favor of changing the name. That's basically it. Thank you for your time, everybody. I hopefully we'll get to the Jerry Malloy conference someday too.
Yeah. The one thing that I would say is, I think, critical for any brand is to not have ambiguity out there. And so what we have right now is ambiguity with a Facebook page that says one thing and a website that doesn't exist anymore. So that's something that has to be addressed one way or another, is making sure that the branding is consistent across all of the platforms that you're engaged with.
Okay.
Points well taken. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Ted, we don't mean to press you into work, but the door is open for you.
Well, I'll follow up in an email with you for sure. I
walked you out.
I was tempted to do it beforehand, and like I said, my intent was to kind of come here tonight and just reacquaint myself. But I guess here we are. But so I can also say this, that one of the things that I saw, I was at the Negro Leagues conference in Birmingham this year, and was and I'm 52. I know I look like I'm about 29, but I was definitely on the young end of the people in that room, and it immediately became critically aware to me. I talked with Leslie Heafy about this specifically, was, what's the plan to energize SABR with young blood? What's the plan to appeal to a younger audience? And that's something that, we've been, thinking about with the story of the Negro Leagues, the really cool announcements, if you guys saw it, the last couple of days, with MLB The Show and a animated series, which I think personally is exactly what's necessary. But that's something to think about with the name too, and when you're thinking about rebranding, like I said earlier, it's like you can accomplish a rebrand without changing the name, frankly, just with a cool new visual. I mean, this is something that I talk people through every day. It's like, can we create a visual ID for you, a logo that makes people want to wear it? What's our Nike swoosh? Can we create it, and can that tell the story of where we are, who we're from, and what our unique sense of pride is in belonging, which is ultimately what people want to see. So frankly, hip new brand is definitely a way to appeal to a younger audience, but having a strategy behind it is what's more important. You can appeal to folks without having that. Anyway, sponsoring an intern, that would be awesome. If this project comes through with the Leonard and Gibson families, I'm going to be looking for an intern to help. It's going to be a pretty unique opportunity. So yeah, this is stuff that I love doing. I've been stretched so thin. I literally been working for nothing the last 3 years.
So I don't want to stump on. I see that David and Ben both have their hands up, but I guess to one follow up to Tad's point, I do think it's worth setting something up off of Facebook. To your point, Tad, I think that if our goal is to go after younger demographics, they are rapidly abandoning Facebook. So I don't really think that is the best long-term path for kind of hosting our web presence. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that point around there. But
yeah,
Ben, I see you have your hand up too.
Ben, your hand is up. Maya, your hand is up. Was up? Was it down?
Just a thumbs up.
I think I'm the only one using the little emoticons to plus one people in comments. But
too busy here to do this. Okay.
All good. Sorry for the confusion.
I listen to LPs on a vacuum tube stereo, so that's where.
Hey, Boober.
Ben, your hand is up. No, it's not up. Okay.
Oh no, it was up, and then I left, and then I came back.
Okay.
I had to get my stack of baseball double bubbles. So I just ordered a whole big thing for my house for baseball season. Yeah, no, I was just thinking about the whole branding exercise, and sometimes even a logo doesn't really tell you what a brand is. Somebody who's had copywriting clients where I've actually done brand questionnaires with, I spent 6 hours with somebody doing a brand questionnaire. I'm still doing it. It's really hard. Unfortunately, I don't really have the time to volunteer because when I do this kind of marketing work, it's how I get paid. So, I mean, I'm happy to contribute, but I know lots about websites, but it's really tough. But for me, as a Canadian born in Vancouver who's come to Seattle for baseball games, if someone tells me what Pacific Northwest is, I know what that immediately means. But I grew up here. And I'm from Vancouver, and I've been to Seattle. My parents lived in Tacoma. Like, as soon as you say Pacific Northwest, I think most people in this area, I don't know what it's like in Washington State, but It makes sense to me.
Well, the old Northwest League had teams in Boise, had teams in Victoria, had teams in Vancouver.
And same with the Pacific Coast League, right? Like the
West Coast League. Yeah.
Yeah, like my team, the Canadians, went from being a AAA team to a high A team for the Blue Jays, but they were a PCL team. So, and there was Edmonton and Calgary teams in that league too.
Well, even if we did rebranding and reach out to other people all over, what are people in Nashville and Columbus and Buffalo and Philadelphia? What are they going to care about Northwest?
Well, they're not, Bob. Sorry to interrupt you, Bob. Like, I agree with you. Like, sometimes if it means a lot to us as a chapter, that's what matters, right? Like, I know what the Pacific Northwest means.
Yes.
You know, I've always known that. Maybe that's just me.
Right.
It means Seattle. It means Vancouver. It means Tacoma. It means Portland. It means, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Northwest League or Pacific Northwest League is probably a lot clearer than a lot of the names like the Larry Doby chapter or the you know, what is it, that guy in Arizona, the Blaze something or other chapter, and you know, putting all that stuff together. The Bobby Thompson's chapter, where is that, in England? You know, it's probably just
Scotland.
What?
It's in Scotland.
Scotland, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll see. I'm thousands of miles off even at that point there. Yeah, but you know, saying Northwest chapter, Pacific Northwest chapter is probably as clear to a large group of the population as any other thing, even Cascades or Cascadia or I don't know what else.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, all the baseball leagues, Pacific Coast League, the West Coast League, all those, those are the names that they've adopted too.
So had a kid this year in rural North Carolina ask me, all the stuff that I've been doing with baseball. Who's the most famous guy you ever met? And I said, oh, probably Ken Griffey Jr. And he said, who?
Nice.
So yeah, we don't even have Griffey to reach the young crowd. You know, isn't that ironic?
They claim him in Cincinnati, probably.
Probably. So I can't resist this little known fact. Did you know that a graduate of Sammamish High School is a member of the Scotland Baseball Hall of Fame? True story. Jason Durr.
I had no idea.
I saw Ken Griffey Jr. hit home runs at the Kingdom in 1990. That's how I got into baseball. There you go.
So I want to ask, where are we going? Where are we going from here? What's our plan of action here? What are we walking away from with an action plan?
Well, either I drop the proposal or two, we vote and see what happens. And based on a lot of the feedback I'm hearing, I think it'd probably be best suited to drop the proposal and maybe adopt the Pacific Northwest.
Well, we've put that Survey Monkey thing out now, so we'll see what happens with it. I'm thinking about, I think we can resolve that one way or another. I'm thinking about just in general, building a website, doing it. Where is this group, where do we go from here? Should we start having like bi-monthly meeting or something like that, just to discuss this and have the people who want to come be the committee that works on this?
Can I motion that we table this until the next meetings, until we have all this more information to go on, until we know what's going on with like what we plan to do with the website, what our purpose is, that sort of thing, just so we can get more information, a couple more suggestions in, and then maybe figure out a voting plan.
Well, I'm thinking I can go probably 2 weeks before we close that SurveyMonkey poll there and have an idea of what people voted on. That may solve some of our problems or not. But what if we set up another meeting for 2 weeks, and those people who could come would come, and we continue this conversation? How does that sound to people?
Would suggest that it's worthwhile to broaden that poll to at least a free form input option, because I don't necessarily think the binary choice reflects the options that everyone prefers.
I did that deliberately just because I knew that it would open up a lot of things that we really needed to discuss in general. I didn't want to put up another whole option there, but once we get beyond that, we should be opening that up and having a discussion.
Can you track who answers what, or not really?
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about it.
Well, yeah, I guess I would say the next step would be, yes, get the poll results. I wouldn't even disclose them. And I would just say, we now welcome any other suggestions from anyone, and just leave it like that for 1 more week. That's what I would do, to Emily's point, I think, and just see what happens then. And I guess I would say, I think that it would be useful to have a brainstorming meeting about the website or the blog or whatever we're calling this thing. But I would also say that, and not to, you don't want to be a survey guy, but I guess I would say, I think a survey of members about what they want to see and what kind of content they want to see would be useful. And then that would drive for a discussion on the May 6th. I think you want to drive to May 6th. I think it's an important date. And I think you want to have meaty topics. And I think you want to get input on that stuff before that. That's just my opinion.
So I would say, I don't actually think it's valuable to collect the poll as it currently stands, because it's going to mislead us in one way or the other because of the binary option. I would prefer to resend it with kind of a more flexible option that better captures the sentiments of the membership. But that would be my 2 cents on that.
Well, yeah, as it was written, it said, would you like a different choice? And I think the only amendment you would need to make is, what is that choice? Is that fair, Emily?
Okay, I didn't actually open it yet. I thought it was just a simple like one.
No,
or
it was
the other.
it is
very simple. Yeah,
it should we change it, and then the second was, should we change it to this? And so there was like kind of a three. It was kind of a keep it, change it to this, or change it to something else. So that was the basic structure of the poll, but without saying what the something else was. So if you wanted to refine it, you could change the second option, subject to the group's input, to what is that choice?
Yeah, just add an input.
That's why I didn't do it that way, because I thought we needed to discuss what those other options could be to start. But point well taken.
So, Bob, if I could, I'd just like to add one thing. And I've been having a lot of connection issues, so I may not get this sentence out. However, what I would suggest for everyone when you're thinking about this poll or the website is really the only people this is for are us, meaning the people in the chapter. I don't think the rest of SABR cares what our name is. I think everybody can figure out where we are. I think that any brand we have should be for how we feel about ourselves, self-pride. If you think it's cool to have a different name, then have a different name. I don't think, and I also don't think that for the website that it's a marketing or sales tool. I think it's just a tool for us to use how we wish to use the website. So I don't think we should spend a lot of time when you're making up your mind thinking, how will this play in Boston or Cleveland. I think it's completely it's our website, our name, and we should decide what we want to do accordingly.
I like that.
One thing I would also add is that, well, first of all, I guess I'll add two things. Sorry. Something that I counsel every one of my small business clients on is that, ironically, your website, even if you're not selling something, is your primary sales engine. It is the place that will make the valuable first and multiple impressions. So, you know, again, if part of the goal of this is to attract new membership and create identity with, you know, membership, then the website is the most important place to make your first impression. And your first impression in you know, is the most important one. The great news is that it's so easy and so quick to make a really nice, clean, good website. Like, truly, from the time that you purchase the domain to the time that you can have a website, a really nice website set up, it can be as little as hours, but days and weeks, you know, to make something that everyone will be really proud of. It's really not difficult. So I'm kind of here to say you can have it all. You know, everything that I've heard is, you know, the goals that exist are, you know, again, be identifiable, but also sense of pride, and something that you know, can help attract membership. And with, you know, simple new website and, you know, simple new approach, at least, to branding and marketing. And I can tell you that there are way too few SABR chapters on Instagram. One of the things that I've done over the last couple of years is create two big international art and sales and fundraising events, one for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, one for the Josh Gibson Foundation. And the majority of attention that we got in that campaign was via Instagram. And specifically with the Josh Gibson campaign, you know, we were trying to engage members of SABR in that campaign, but we couldn't find anybody, at least chapter wise, on Instagram. Plenty on Twitter, but Twitter has its own issues. Instagram is just like this really nice neutral place to have conversations with people from a marketing standpoint, and a slightly younger audience.
One thing that would be helpful to me, at least, is if someone like Tad or Ben or someone who knew how to do this would give us some kind of a briefing at some point on what the division of labor is for something like this, and on a sustainable basis. So it's maybe some people are like me and you're a little bit reluctant to raise your hand to volunteer, unknowing what you're getting yourself into. Am I committing to creating the content, to foraging for content, for uploading content, for finding images for it, just all that stuff? And so the answer, I'm sure, to that is a broad spectrum. You could be anything from a little involved to a lot involved to buried. And so it would be helpful to know what the roles would be. And I agree with Tad that those plug and play websites now are amazing. There's great images. They can look great overnight, but they do have to be sustainable. And even that isn't that hard if you maybe have even just a few
committed people and maybe a person or two who vets copy, goes through the copy or whatever, but I'm not sure what that would look like right now, and it would be helpful to me to kind of know what my options were for getting involved.
Yeah, no, that's great, and you're totally right that it's one thing to have these things, and it's another for somebody to have to be there to manage them. The websites really are very, very easy, and again I'm thinking of platforms like the e-commerce ones. Specifically, I've built websites on Shopify and now Squarespace. They're really, really easy to use, and really, and I have to believe that there's just about 100% of the folks on this call can figure out how to use them. They're really easy. The tough one is the content marketing. It's the the purposeful stream of valuable content, right? The most important thing about content is that it be valuable to the people who are reading it and consumable. Somebody made a comment about SABR kind of naturally being an older demographic, which I understand completely. We have time to kill, and we're also, the older we are, the closer we are to the deep nostalgia of baseball. But there are ways to reach, like, honestly, right now 40 and 50-year-olds are the best people to target, because we are now the generation who has the disposable income and a little bit of time on our hands and deep nostalgia for shit that happened in the 80s. Give us some polyester. That's what we're all about. Give us some Topps baseball cards that you can find for free now. That we want that. We're the wax pack era.
Artificial turf and wood paneled baseball cards. Let's have that.
Yeah. Well, remember 1960, was it 62 had wood panel before 87, but yeah, we're the perfect demographic to go after right now. It's just like happened in the 80s when the 60s diners were all the rage. It's because the marketing machine was tapping into the nostalgia of people who grew up in the 60s, of the baby boomers. So that's something that happens over and over and over again in the advertising and marketing industry. And so that's, that is absolutely a strategy that I would employ. And honestly, I've really thought about reaching out to, Leslie and SABR National to talk about this very thing. This last fall, we ran a content marketing campaign called This Day in Homestead Gray's History. We ran that through the Buck Leonard Association, basically created as their content. And that was basically done by myself and a designer who I have. If you're on Instagram, check out Eric Kittleberger on, he's at Triple Play Design. You're gonna love his work. But Eric and I put together this content marketing campaign This Day in Gray's History, and it took a lot of time, but it's fun. And for those of us who love the research, that's the part you can play. That's the really good news, is that content marketing is all about surfacing great stories, great content, and then just presenting it in a really consumable fashion. And so as a group effort, this is something that could definitely be done. Frankly, I'm getting excited the more we sit here.
When we did have a website, was it accessible to the general public, or did one have to be a SABR member?
Been so long, I don't know if anybody knows.
I would think it would be available to everybody. It wouldn't matter if you're a SABR member.
Yeah,
especially if you're trying to get people to.
It was available to everybody.
It was I would public. Think so.
The nice thing with these templates too is that you can have both. You can have a public facing website, but also have content that's only accessible to membership.
Yeah, we want people to be able to, like, we want to have our meeting notices put on there. We want to have the pictures of us at the meeting simulated meeting and stuff like that. And we used to be able to do that. You wanted to have more like a newsletter kind of thing that we could do, and that could be monthly or bi-monthly or whatever there. But that's what really there's a lot of spaces where we can go. But my opinion is that the website is kind of the trunk of that tree. There is the way to go with it. Okay? Yeah, that's the first step.
Yeah. May I say something? But the thing, I think Tad and somebody else mentioned it, is that whatever platforms, I think we need to use multi-platforms, but people have to see that it's an active platform, that's moving, it's doing things. That's the big thing, because websites, I mean, I've seen some, all kinds of websites, I've seen all kinds of Facebook pages, and if they're dead, people aren't gonna be drawn to them, but they see it's alive, that's interactive, because that's can be changing. So I could go on a website today and it'll be different tomorrow. That's what people are looking for, that it's active, it's fluid, it's moving.
It's
and
true.
I've been pretty successful with Facebook. I have a number of Facebook groups, and but you use that with websites, with blogs, with all kinds of things available. So, but main thing is that it's moving, that it's alive. That's the main thing I think younger people are looking for. If they see that they go to a web page and it's the same thing from a month ago or 2 weeks ago, they're not going to revisit it, because if it's not changing and moving. Sorry. Thank you.
So out of the 26 or so people that are on this call, are there a half dozen or so that would be open to be on a committee to figure out what we want on this website and what we want it to do? And then whoever the 6 are, I'd volunteer to be on this site. But, I've tried to build a website a couple times through WordPress. I took a class at Portland Community College. I follow step-by-step instructions, but nothing happens. So I can't figure it out. So if we have 6 people,
not easy. It's not easy.
They go and then to put things on there, but we can't figure out how to build this website. Tad, would you be available to guide us into how the heck we do this, or anybody else would know how to build a website?
Yeah, like I said,
got a website, and I think Steve Steinberg has a website if he's ever back in the country.
Yeah, I've found, so I've built websites on WordPress too, and I've kind of managed websites on WordPress, and I've definitely found it more I'll just say more difficult than the e-commerce platforms. Like I say, I'm literally in the process right now of building out the website for our new consulting business and Squarespace. It's just awesome. It's really great. It's so easy to use. Just nice, clean website, and truly, like, the hardest part, frankly, of building a website these days is getting the content nailed down. What do you want to say on the website? That is always where the majority of time has been spent in every website I've been part of.
What is the cost involved in that, Ted? Is there a monthly?
So let's see, Squarespace. So basically you've got cost of the domain, which is typically going to be not a whole lot, usually under $100 for the domain. Then your web hosting. So so I literally just found this out last night as we bought our domain through a company called DreamHost, which is basically like GoDaddy, but we set up our website on Squarespace. So we just have to connect those two. Well, come to find out that I actually could have bought the domain through Squarespace. I didn't realize that. It would have made it easier. But basically the all in for getting the website, the domain purchased and website launched, you've got domain, hosting, and security. and it's probably gonna come out to less than $400 for a year. The second, and that's because the domain, you had to buy the first year. I think that's good for 2. So second year, you're just down to your hosting costs, but you're never gonna be paying more than $500. And that's giving a high ceiling to that. It's really cheap. And somebody asked a question earlier about a webmaster, and truly these types of platforms are so easy. You really don't need one. You just need a few folks who are, savvy enough. If you can log in and check your email and do, say, like, things on Google Documents, you can log into one of these websites and move content around. So yeah, the good news is that it's really not that difficult to put it into play. It's difficult to get the words right. It can be difficult, we'll say.
Yeah, if we could put a committee together to try to figure out what we want on this, and then send that list to everybody. Okay, is this what you like? Because
one place that I would start with that, I think it's a perfect idea. I would say that everybody who's got a vested interest in that is go out and look at other SABR websites. Are there any chapter websites that are good?
Oh yeah.
And I would imagine that most chapters are in the same boat. We've all got so little time that we can devote to volunteering. And especially when we start volunteering our time based around the way that we make our living, it can be difficult. But the more the merrier. The more people that are involved in this, the easier it becomes, and that's the truth. And frankly, the best content marketing strategy. So when it comes time to actually just get people creating new stories and new content, now the art becomes, let's take Matt's story that he just wrote, and let's find little kind of nuggets that we can pull out of there and make an Instagram post, and then use that to drive traffic back to the website. And I'm going to stop here because I can definitely get excited about this, and like the better the content gets, the evolution for the chapter, and specifically the website, can be to graduate into a more professional website that probably can still be built on WordPress, but that can actually host plugins for advertising, so that the website could actually be plugged into ad networks, because that would then start generating passive revenue for the chapter, just by ads that get served. Everybody follows Baseball Reference, right?
Yeah.
So you notice that Baseball Reference just launched ads on their website.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody, relatively unintrusively, though, right? They're doing a pretty good job of that. So I forgot to tie off on that Homestead Grays, this day in Homestead Grays history piece that we did. Baseball Reference wound up sponsoring that, and so got a chance to meet Sean Foreman and Adam Dorowski in October down in Rocky Mount. So it was fun to talk to them about that, because that's the world that I come from. I got my start in the advertising business. I was building ads on ESPN.com back in 1999. So I was so I grew up in that ad space, and so that to me it can be a goal for a chapter like this, right, to produce such great content that your website can be out there, just like The Athletic is.
I just wanted to say that I'm fairly certain that we would be pretty limited in our ability to raise revenue as a chapter of SABR. I mean, that's sort of SABR's job. I don't think that the national office would want us running ads either. unless they were completely controlled by the national, who we pay money to do these things. So we have at the national level, we have lawyers, we have we have accountants, we have people that fill out our tax forms and everything, and they're pretty careful about the ability of non-paid or non-appointed people that are sort of raising money. We would have to register in Washington State, and we'd have to register in probably every state and that is something that we are probably not equipped or prepared to do at this point.
Sure.
Which isn't to say that we can't someday do it, but this would probably be a national process and decision to get there.
And on top of all that,
Totally.
there's 501c3 to worry about.
Yeah. I'm a board member of another nonprofit that has to run through a lot of that stuff to have enough money to do its programming and stuff. And there's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Certainly. Like I said, that would be something that you would potentially evolve into. And I tend to think really big all the time. So I do have to be reined in a lot. So I'll let you know that right off the bat too. But
no, it's fine. I think I think big ideas is where we'll get the ideas. I mean, and I don't mean to be the person that says stop having big ideas, because it might be in fact that we end up doing that at some point. We just need, there are several hoops to go through to do that.
Sure. Yeah. And like I say, that would be way down the line. The easiest thing to do right now, I would say is to build a website on one of those DIY platforms, plug and play. Really, really easy. In fact, if a follow-up meeting from this, I certainly would be willing to be on a committee or in any form or fashion. I could even, open up the Squarespace platform so you can see what that looks like.
Hey, Amanda, can I ask you if you wanted to chime in? Because I've read what you've written in the chat there. I think it pertains to a lot of the things we've been talking about. Would you like to chime in a little?
Yeah, I think a lot about entry points into baseball writing, because I got really lucky with it. I just applied to Lookout Landing on a whim when they had a call for writers. I guess that was like 7 years ago. And they didn't do another one until last winter. So if you don't have a lot of experience writing, you're probably not going to start off submitting stuff to Baseball Prospectus. You're probably not going to jump right into the SABR journal, but having a website where there's a blog and you can do your research and write something up, and maybe it goes through 1 or 2 editors, but having that there and getting feedback on it is a big part of growing as a writer. But also just having those clips there gives you something to send to people when you're pitching a story. And I think that would naturally bring in younger people who are looking for that entry point. Plus, being at Lookout Landing, I was definitely one of the older writers there, but among, the kids in their 20s, I think the perception of SABR is that it's just a lot of old people, which it is to an extent. And I think you can change that demographic and change that perception with having a welcoming web presence, because there really isn't anything right now other than the Facebook group.
And an Instagram presence that could grow from that. I think if our website was consistent and sustainable and had decent content, it would be a lot easier to grow some of those other platforms from there, which could really be helpful in bringing people in general, but particularly young people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to add to Amanda's point, I started the Baseball Cards Committee in 2016, and the blog, we started the blog immediately. The blog was like the first day we had a blog, and now I think it's defined by the blog. I think that the blog is kind of who they are, and I'm no longer part of management, but very closely involved. And a lot of people jumped in and started writing who had never written a word before, that are now among the more active SABR members that I think we have, honestly. And they started writing, and my instruction, as it were, at the start was write about whatever you want. Don't ask whether other people are interested in this or not. And I especially wanted people who were younger than me, in some cases much younger than me, to write about the baseball cards that were much newer than anything I knew about. I think it's been a success. And I think that I can sort of envision a day when the Northwest SABR blog, or whatever we're called, will have opportunities for people to write about the current Mariners, or some Seattle native from 150 years ago, or art, or poetry, or music, or anything related to the chapter. And I could see that being kind of what we become defined by someday.
Mark, I mentioned the blog in the chat a couple minutes ago. Honestly, I think you guys do a great job with that. And it's one of the things I link to almost every Friday from that newsletter that Jacob Pomrenke puts out. It's very clear. It's very organized. You can see what's going on with the new posts are, a little Twitter thing on the side for little updates or whatever. It's really a great resource and great entertaining read.
We even made a writer out of Tim, the guy with the mask there.
So Jason Schwartz is probably a guy you know, right, Mark?
Yeah. I think I've joked to Jacob that someday my SABR epithet will be that I got Jason Schwartz involved, because he essentially succeeded me as the chair of the committee, and he's fantastic. He's a great guy, hardworking, friendly as heck. He's just a top-notch mensch.
Yeah, he is. And he's the kind of guy that there's a lot of. And so in the baseball card art community in particular, that Jason is a really big part of, there's several pretty influential artists right around here. One in Lake Forest Park, Third Dan Art, if you guys follow him on Instagram. A guy down at Tacoma, Blender of Zombie is his Instagram handle. These are great guys, and I think that they're guys that can be brought into the fold, with some purpose, and they're the perfect guys, say, to at FanFest host instead of just having a table, have a table that's full of old baseball cards and glue and scissors and glitter and all the different stuff, and invite kids in here to start cutting up baseball cards and make their own. And these guys will be there to teach them how to do it. That's just one thought. I know that Jason has done at least 1 or 2 card art workshops with kids, and they've been really successful. So that community in particular, the baseball card art one, they're targets.
So if you know of any of those people that would be interested in coming to the May 6th meeting in Seattle and would be willing to do a presentation, you should mention that to Tip. Ideally, they would join SABR too. If they haven't already, but that would be a great thing to have at a SABR meeting, I think, as step one.
Yeah. Goodness, I've got the other community that I got exposed to this year. Like you guys, I played first base at the old Durham Athletic Park and sat in the dugout where Crash and Nuke sat. I got a chance to play there in a Sandlot baseball tournament. And have you guys seen the Sandlot baseball kind of revival that's going on? that's something that needs to be here too. And frankly, that's the thing that I've been thinking about. I want to try and get going as a Sandlot community here. The Sandlot community is wonderful because it is so completely inclusive. It's got all kinds of weirdos in it. And these are just people who have grown a love of baseball, but feel excluded from the game, for one reason or another. It's such a cool community, and it's something that SABR could locally could be part of actually sponsoring into existence and creating membership that way too. Awesome community. Those two, Sandlot Baseball and Baseball Card Art, are full of younger folks and enthusiastic folks. That's the key.
The huge Sandlot community in Nashville, and they have, there's a dozen teams, close to a dozen teams, full uniforms, and there's the Dollies.
Played against the Dollies.
A Dolly Parton logo, and they're just, it's creative. It's pretty cool.
I don't know. Some of you kind of responded to my question in there about the All-Star Fan Fest and whether or not there is going to be one this summer in association with the All-Star Game being in Seattle. And because that was my first introduction to SABR here 20-some years ago in 2001. And we might be able to generate some interest in new members if we're there, but if it's a few of you, Matt and TA, I don't know if that's you, Tad, but the answer that MLB is tightly controlling that, so SABR has nothing to do with providing volunteers there, or
that's correct. As far as I understand, and speaking with the marketing folks of the Mariners, there was no fan fest, and MLB is really controlling, like, top to bottom, the entire shebang, which is unfortunate for local folks.
Yeah, just park the booth 30 feet down the road from the stadium.
So there's going to be no fan fest at all. Is that what you're saying?
Just park it 50 feet down from the stadium so they can't control it. You could do it out in the street. What are they going to do? Call the cops?
Yeah.
Well, seriously, right? They can control it in the ballpark, but they can't control it outside the ballpark.
Yeah, well,
unless somebody thinks you're like a public nuisance, right?
Yeah, that's true.
A really good partner.
Depends on who's manning the booth.
A great partner to forge.
Pass out flyers without anybody
Actually,
saying
they
anything.
haven't had a fan fest in some years, though.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Oh.
Okay, that the only.
I've seen Anthony in that booth. It's not. He can get
pretty
rowdy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Excited, passionate.
What happened? People were rowdy. Where? Sorry, I missed that.
The Mariners used to have a fan fest every year, and SABR several times had a booth. And I was just saying that Anthony could get kind of rowdy in that booth. That's all.
It was always on the coldest day of the year.
Oh my God!
It was always at the end of January, and you might as well, never mind.
That was the precursor of SABR Day. It was in the weekend between when there was no football, and they had their fan fest there. And it was colder than hell when you were standing out in that concourse.
All right.
So Bob, before we jump off, I had a couple of things I wanted to mention, and maybe we can talk about this in the next meeting. One is I really think that it should be a goal of the chapter to be part of SABR Day. There were 30 chapters that participated in SABR Day, and I think it's become something that a lot of chapters take pride in, that everybody's kind of pulling the oars together, and they can talk about what they've done and everything. On social media, there's a lot of interaction about it. And I think that we've never really done it on the same day. I think a couple of times we faked it. I think we should maybe make that a goal for next year to be part of SABR Day.
Yeah.
And secondly, I think I'd like to have a conversation about meeting in Portland, and maybe not waiting until next February.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that on the agenda here, and we can talk about it another time. But
I wasn't sure if we were going to go through the whole agenda or not.
I don't know. We think we've done well in getting to this point anyway. But I will say, mea culpa. I recognize that I have been lost my way a little in terms of dealing with the pandemic, and also we don't have a good place in Portland to have a meeting there, so that's been an issue. But I'm determined that we're going to start having meetings, even if it's not like on the same schedule that we used to have there. But we're going to go to we're going to go to the ball games and stuff. I talked a little with K.L. Wambacher. The Hops have their Saturday afternoon games in April and May start at 4:00, and we might be able to meet at the Hops Stadium there before that and go to that meeting. I talked a little to them about that there. And I know we've talked about a couple other things.
Isn't Bob a big shot with them?
Yeah, well, he's the guy that if I say I know Bob Webster, they'll nod. Oh yeah, we know Bob. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Bob knows everybody there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yeah, Mark, I appreciate that. I needed a kick in the pants for some of that stuff to go on. Now, I thought that this meeting would fall into the SABR Day thing there, but it's not the same as having a SABR Day kind of experience and things like that, which used to be part of the Fan Fest experience there as well. We always used to, those were tied. We were doing that meeting then before anybody else was. But yeah, we need to, I hear you. And we need to, I really want to put some effort into getting in-person meetings going again. I'm not going to give up on virtual meetings and other stuff there, but in-person meetings will be an important step that we get going again, post-pandemic and things like that. Yeah. And I say that now so that you guys will kick me in the pants when
I turned it
things don't go.
Right, your light is broken. Okay. It must be.
What's that?
I'm invading your space now.
I was going to say, someone said the Tacoma and according to the Rainiers game, I posted in the Pacific Northwest or our Facebook group that I would go to the Everett Aqua Sox game because that's close for me too in terms of baseball from Vancouver, and they're playing the Canadians in mid to late April. So I could see my hometown team in Everett.
In Portland, there's also now the Portland Pickles.
Yeah.
Pickles?
Sort of, in that Sandlot vein. They put on a pretty good show, and I followed their Instagram account, for instance.
The Portland Pickles. Okay, I'll have to follow it, Doug.
Well,
yeah, it's
I'll check it out.
Well,
they're a trip.
Portland Pickles.
Yeah, Rob Nyer, a longtime member of this chapter, is the commissioner of the West Coast League. Okay, well, we've been at it for almost 2 hours here. I'll tell you, I still want to come out of here with a little more of a concrete plan of action. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to set a meeting for 2 weeks from today, and I will announce what we got from the Survey Monkey thing. And anyone who wants to come can come in, and we can continue this discussion about moving forward on the website and in-person meetings and other things. How does that sound?
Yeah, I was going to say people could post their comments too in the Facebook group about it.
You can't come, but I'm gonna have a meeting there.
Okay.
And I would support the notion that that maybe at that meeting we say, well, we're gonna try to form a exploratory committee on next steps for
Yes.
the website.
Yes.
And just to see who would be interested, how many people that would take, and
Yeah.
what kind of commitment it would mean, but something.
Yeah. The people that show up will be indicating that they are interested in following up and doing something like that. Even if we're only there for an hour or something like that. I'm going to do it 2 weeks from today, which will be the 21st of February. Okay? George Washington's birthday.
Almost.
Yeah, okay.
Can't find it. Portland Pickles. I'm just looking it up on Instagram. Jojo. Where's their Instagram account?
They have a place called the Pickle Jar that
Oh yeah. I was just trying to find the Instagram account to see if I could follow the Instagram account. Did you say there was one, Doug?
I think there is.
Yeah. No, I just like I'd seriously follow it just to check it out. And for me, if I can take the train there, like I don't know if I drive down, if I can take the Amtrak, that might be my best option for SABR meetings. If they're in Seattle.
Yeah, the Pickles do have Facebook if you want to look at that one.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Maybe that's where I see it.
It's Pickles
Okay.
Baseball. Instagram is Pickles Baseball. I follow them too.
Pickles Baseball. Yeah, it's always good to follow them on social media. You'll get a ton of ideas about what they're up to.
Yeah, they're kind of
Especially
a
Instagram.
poor man's version of the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard about the Savannah Bananas. Okay. I
Where
don't know
are the
anything.
Pickles based again?
Portland.
They're in Portland.
Yeah, they're a legitimate college summer league team.
They're wooden bat.
But they've mastered. John Ryan, the old Seahawks punter, is one of their owners, and they've really created just
It's a
awesome
show.
fan experience.
Yeah, it's a show, and they're just great marketers.
Yep.
Great unis and a real following, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The commissioner of the league is in our chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said.
Oh, okay. How big is the league?
I think it has like 10 or 12 teams.
16 teams, I think.
Yeah, that's one in Port Angeles, and I go see occasionally.
Yeah. I see Mark throwing out the first pitch at some before an Oregon meeting, maybe. It's my vision.
Rob. Yeah, Rob's probably thrown out the first pitch a few times.
Yeah, but I think you should throw it out, though.
I never have.
I'll throw it out just because I'm a Canadian guy, and then people think I'm weird. It won't matter to me. I don't really care. Same with me standing in front of Safeco, passing out Pacific Northwest SABR leaflets at the Major League Baseball tightly controls the All-Star game. I'll do it 50 feet down the street. I don't care. Like, here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go. Well, seriously, like literally nobody would shut you down, right? I mean, what would they do? Probably not much.
It's pretty hardcore around there. You have to be careful.
Oh, really? Yeah, because I haven't been to T-Mobile
that's
for a
going
while.
to be handed out that weekend. So I think you're probably going to be okay if you hand out our leaflets.
I would think so too, right? Like, I'm not saying we should do it. It's just the Major League Baseball is for everyone, but we're going to tightly control every aspect of the All-Star game. Okay.
Yeah, well,
See if you can counterfeit the watermark.
Yeah, no, I won't do that. But it's just hypocritical, right? It's like,
well, the All-Star game has moved into a lot of pizzazz and showmanship anyway. And doing.
Is anybody in this group going to the game?
oh, good. How much were the tickets?
I haven't gotten an opportunity to. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
$1 million.
Nice.
Yeah, if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Well, hey, the other thing I found out is too, 6 months later, it's the outdoor game for the NHL at T-Mobile with the Kraken.
Oh, on New Year's Day.
Yeah, that just got announced recently too.
That should be really cool.
Yeah, it'd be
It would have
interesting.
been hell, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They played it in Los Angeles once. They had the ice was almost melting.
Oh yeah, I remember the Los Angeles one with the Ducks and the Kings, and I was just like, how are they doing this outside? Like, where was it? Dodger Stadium?
They had one in Spokane a couple of years ago for the hockey league around here, and as I recall, it was like 40
WHL.
or 50-degree weather. The ice was really soft, and it ended up being like 13 to 12 or something like that.
I was at that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the Western Hockey League if it's a Spokane Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Any of this discussion about Fan Fest and all that? I know at all the All-Star games, like starting the Friday before the All-Star game, there's all kinds of neat things, Fan Fest, and this and that and the other, Futures game and all that stuff. But the one coming up here in Seattle that may affect our Northwest SABR group is National Convention lasts till Sunday. So, and a whole bunch of people from this chapter go to the National Convention. So if any of that stuff is.
Yeah, the SABR National Convention is in Chicago this year. So
yeah. Usually, well, Sunday is hardly anything though. The only thing is they redo the best presentation. That's all that happens on Sunday, I think.
No, that's on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Well, then nothing happens on Sunday then.
For those of you that haven't gone to the National Convention, once you go, you'll always want to keep going. Really, for the size of our chapter, there's a lot of the most active members in the national group that are members of this chapter. There's a couple of sitting right here.
I've gone to every one since 1990.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've gone to every one since 2005.
Yeah. So, and I've gone to a few myself. Yeah. And I registered just today for the.
I beat you to it. I registered last night.
Yeah, I was waiting to talk to my brother-in-law. Yeah.
Did they straighten out the rooms thing? Did you get rooms already?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, you know.
Only single beds or something?
Yeah, the Palmer House. Helen's not coming. She's having knee replacement surgery. So you had your choice between one king bed or one double bed. That was it. So much for having a roommate, I guess, unless you want to sleep in share a bed with them, you know. Yeah.
It kind of overlapped the scheduling with SABR this year. I mean, I'm fairly new to SABR, only been here about a year or two, but is it always around All-Star break or kind of?
No, it moves around.
It's been as early as mid-June and it's been as late as like the second week in August.
It depends on the host city and the MLB schedule and getting a hotel. There's a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, right.
I think the sweet spot is like the last week in June or something like that.
Or the last week in July, maybe, yeah.
Well, for those of us who don't live in from the baseball-less city of Portland, it was always nice to go to a national convention and catch games before or after in the city when that was going on and stuff.
Yeah, it looks like this year will be St. Louis at the White Sox.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Yeah.
The south side of Chicago.
That's a big old empty stadium. It's a pretty ugly stadium. I've been there twice.
Yeah. Well, I hope they're going to put us on a bus and take us there.
No, it's easy. It's easy to take the train down.
It's easy to take the L. It's literally.
Is that right?
Away. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It runs parallel to the expressway. That I guess it's the Dan Ryan.
Okay. Yeah.
And the red line is one of the ones that goes underground in Chicago. So
I've never been there. So been to Wrigley a lot, but never to.
So you had to take a single room. You had to take a single bed. Okay, yeah. But Irv told me that they were going to try to fix that, though. I guess I don't know if SABR did or not, but
yeah. Well,
and you couldn't go a day early. There was nothing on the 4th of July.
No, I registered to get there on the 4th of July.
Really?
Yeah, they had it open from the 2nd. When I
I had it open on the 2nd and the 3rd, but when I looked, they didn't have it on the 4th.
Well, I got a reservation for the 4th, so should have waited a day. See, there.
I guess I'll go in and adjust it.
Yeah, call them up and see if you can
Is it the same process where you first register for the convention and then you go?
You get a link.
To the hotel?
Right.
You get a link after you've registered for the
Yeah.
convention.
Yeah.
Go on booking.com, see if you can get it for cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I think it's 220 something.
224.
Yeah.
And that is that before taxes and everything?
That's the convention rate.
The taxes usually 15 or 20% because cities love to tax out of towners.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. Well, there's probably rooms at Trump's hotel there. You could go there.
Yeah. The one thing about the Palmas I remember is that along the hallways were all the pictures of people who've stayed there. Like I was right across from Bob Newhart's photograph, which I remember was it's like he's very much a Chicago guy. I realized. There was also like Dean Martin and well,
there was like Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
There was some pretty cool things there. Yeah.
Yeah, the next door, Miller's Pub, they have photos of people who have been there, all the movies.
So long, Matt.
100 years ago.
But
I gotta hit the night.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna log off here and
yeah, it's time to shut down.
So long here, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Good to see everybody.
I'm gonna
so long,
2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I'm gonna set up a meeting.
Okay.
To talk about stuff.
Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Be there and be square. Okay. So long.
That's good.